and welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing a new indie horror demo. Blink is the first game from Abandoned House Studios. At time of writing, Blink is their only game, and it's a pay-what-you-want demo on itch.io. Blink is advertised as a psychological horror set in the 1970s where threats lurk just beyond the blink of an eye. I found it on Twitter, which is one of the easiest ways to get me to pay attention to a game. I want to note that this is not a sponsored video. This game was not given to me, the developers did not specifically ask me for this, and I do not feel any kind of pressure to give a positive review on it. That said, in Blink you play as a nameless, faceless protagonist because this is a horror genre and main characters don't exist in 3D horror games. You start by waking up in a nice house with instructions to babysit a small child named Lily Vita on her birthday.
Apologies again for asking to watch Lily on such short notice.
Well, that's not entirely true. You start by watching a video letting you know that you are a member of the CAMP program, which has drugged you and you may experience moments of memory loss, and I didn't really like this opening sequence. It went on for much longer than it needed to, and I didn't really find it compelling enough to pay attention to. It reminded me of the framing device in the Resident Evil 7 demo where the reality show crew goes into the house to explore before Ethan gets there. It's just as disconnected from the actual product's plot and not really reflective of the actual experience I had with the demo itself, where you explore a really nice house and not watch a guy be frustrated with his production crew. Gameplay is typical of the walk and solve puzzles horror in games. You wander through the house trying to find this child that you're supposed to be babysitting, piecing together the mystery of the Vita family, and trying to turn on lights after the game shuts them off. The movement is good. I'm very grateful for the sprint key since the walking speed is a little slow. Turning speed is very slow, especially with objects. I wish there was a way to adjust the mouse sensitivity in the game. I ended up adjusting the DPI manually on my mouse and that kind of worked, but adjusting the sensitivity in the game would have been the more elegant solution. The controls were intuitive, especially if you've played these nameless, faceless puzzle games before. Even if they weren't easy to figure out, the game gives you the basic controls right off the bat. That's the last time the game gives you instructions too. There's no text interface telling you where to go or what to do, and I like that since I get to explore organically. Also worth noting is the reticle. You barely get one. I think that's a good touch and it adds to the immersion of the game. Overall, the gameplay gets a B+. The unique mechanic of the game is that you're blinking constantly, and sometimes after a blink you're in a completely different place in the house. The idea is that you'll be disoriented and confused, which I like as a trick. I kept finding myself looking for minuscule differences in the environment after the blinks, which put me in a more activated sort of state and helped with the survival horror feeling they were aiming for. Sometimes you'll see weird patterns in the lights when you blink in the dark or near a light source. Sometimes you'll see something that wasn't there earlier. My biggest problem with it is that it's so distracting when the blinks happen, and I know that there are solutions to this. One solution is to trust that we're blinking ourselves. I'm blinking naturally throughout the whole thing, and it's human instinct to blink when we're surprised. If you want to retain that control, you could just use a cut. Cuts to different scenes tend to look like a blink, and you'll still retain control of what we see. I like the idea in theory, but there are a lot more natural ways to get the effect. I like the intrigue that the game builds up during the underground sequence and quieter sections in the house. I was genuinely getting creeped out in places and kept trying to find ways to pull us out of playing more, which is to the developers' credit. Speaking of things to praise the developers over, the game is also very well made. Like the reticle example from earlier, the game goes to great lengths to immerse you. There was a part towards the end where I was outside and a tree's branches were blowing in the wind, and it just looked so perfect. I also like how the lack of combat is made really clear right off the bat in the control sections. There's no way for you to attack in-game and no way for you to hide. I didn't run into any bugs either, just the occasional frame rate drop when I moved too quickly, but it was over in a second or two, so you know that Abandoned House has brought their A-game in terms of quality control. I would love to see more of the transitional sequences where you're suddenly in a set of tunnels or a completely different part of the house with something happening behind you. Those were good for survival horror vibes, good for the immersion, and a really effective way of disorienting the player without needing to use a jump scare. My favorite part of the game is either the underground sequence I mentioned earlier or the time after the first meaningful blink where you have to wander back through the house. If I could take anything out of the game, it would be only the things that break my immersion and interest. One of them is the framing device at the beginning. It's probably my least favorite part of the game. I didn't think it was necessary, it went on for too long, and it gave half the game's twists away. I literally was playing a mobile game on my phone after the first transition during that part, so maybe cut it down in the finished product. The other is the blinking mechanic, which might be harder to do since it's baked into the name. Humans blink naturally, they can trust us to do that on our own. Or maybe they could have a setting to turn off the blinking or make it less intrusive. The last thing is super minor, and it may not even be a bug, but a clue. The game takes place in Colorado, but the books on the walls of the study are in Cyrillic. Nothing else in the house is Cyrillic, no newspapers, no instructions. But the books are. Is this indicating that we're Russian? Is Dr. Vita Russian? Was this an oversight on the developer's part? We don't know. We don't get to know. But it's not a bad thing, just a weird one, and my feelings about the game are ultimately positive. I do recommend this game for a lot of reasons. I like the intrigue it's building up, the developers are good at building suspense, and minus the blinking stuff, the game is very immersive. I wanted to know what was going on with the child, I wanted to know what the deal was with the monster, which looks very cool by the way. Abandoned House Studios did an amazing job at creating an immersive, polished experience. If you loved Layers of Fears' gameplay, or you loved Outlast's story but you hated that gameplay, then you're gonna like this game. The demo is pay what you want, and the developers are very friendly on Twitter, so go give the demo a try, keep an eye on the release date, and let them know what you think. And also me, by dropping me a comment. That's it from me today. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment letting me know what you think about Blink. And if there are any other games that you want me to review. You can also get that information to me on Twitter, and you should follow me there as well. Take care. Bye-bye.